by security that there are two vehicles parked in the fire zone that need to be moved. The first one is a GMC Envoy, license plate H68ANM, and a Ford black truck, S150, license plate H52NLJ. If you wouldn't mind moving those at this time. Thank you. Cemetery in Morganville. I must remind you, though, please be mindful of our attendance. Due to the amount of people that we have here in attendance, we want to make sure that everybody forms a procession. If you do wish to partake in our funeral procession, you do so at your own risk. You and you alone are responsible for the safe and lawful operation of your own vehicle at all times. Unfortunately, we're not above the law. We're going to do our best to make sure we get everybody across Route 34 and Route 79 in order to get over to the cemetery. Thank you.
unfortunate occasion when we have to come together under these circumstances, but we will see that we make this as much a celebration as a time of sorrow. Our custom teaches to begin such occasions with 3 simple words. If you would repeat after me. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, which means praised is the judge of truth. We continue with a line from the book of Job. Adonai Natan, V'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevorach. Adonai has given and Adonai has taken. Praised be the name of Adonai. A Psalm of David. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity. Do what is right. Speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon your tongue. Do no evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates. Accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own. Then shall you stand firm forever. We read as well in the book of Psalms that Adonai is close to the brokenhearted and helps those crushed in spirit. A good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace, for honor in old age does not come from length of life. Honor in old age does not come from length of years. Understanding is the gray hair of humanity. A blameless life is ripeness of age. Perfection in limited years is like living for many years. So a good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. Let us then, with peace of mind, let that good soul rest. We now invite the family members to come and share some memories and reflections on the life of Eric Samuel Skolnick, who we're here to honor today. We'll begin with his daughter, Alexa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alexa, or as my dad called me, Alabama, Al, or simply A. There are so many things that I could say about my dad. Just like everyone in this room, I have plenty of Eric stories that I could share. Like the time that I was Raggedy Ann for Halloween and decided the wig was too itchy to keep wearing, so my dad decided that he would wear it. Or watching Jeopardy with him when I was too young to even try to play along. I was talking to my dad just 2 days before he passed. It was his birthday, and we were joking about the fact that he had to go pick up his own birthday cake. And he says to me, "Oh, you'll get a kick out of this. I was talking with your sister and Dylan about how they had seen a movie at a drive-in." I said, "You don't hear that very often." So your sister says to me, "The dream is to see Grease at the drive-in." And in his true fashion, my dad says, "That's the dream?" So Dylan turns to Gabby and says, "Wow, he sounds just like your sister." She says, "Yes, that's what I always say." My dad says, hold on. She sounds like me. I'm the OG. My whole life, I was told that I look and I sound just like my dad, that I'm his mini-me, and I couldn't be prouder to carry on his joking, witty manner. I mean, if you got us in a room together, it was like surround sound, sarcasm, and teasing. Just ask my sister. But that's the person my dad was. Someone who liked to joke and laugh. He told the silliest dad jokes and puns because he got a kick out of them. And I think that my dad wouldn't want us to be sad. He'd want us to laugh and joke and celebrate everything that made him so quintessentially him. Things like his sarcastic humor, his love of music and sports, and his absolute love and devotion to us, his family, as well as each and every person here. And just like everyone here, I'll miss him so, so much. And I can only hope to continue to make him proud and to forever be his mini-me. Thank you.
And next is Gabby.
Mine's a little longer, which is pretty typical for us, usually me talking a little bit more. First off, I want to thank everyone for coming to support my family and pay their respects to my dad. It means more than words could ever describe. Figuring out how to start this was really tough because there's just so much I can talk about for my dad. But I decided in true Eric fashion, I'd start off with one of his favorite things, a dad joke. For those of you that don't know, my dad was the ultimate dad joke fan, and this joke was one of his favorites. He would tell it to Alexa and I over and over again since we were kids, and it goes like this. There's a man with a girlfriend, and he really likes the girl, but she has a cat, and every time he goes over, the cat would sit on the couch, and there'd be no room for him. So one day, he took the cat, drove it 1 mile from the house, dropped it off, came back. When he walked in, the cat was sitting on the couch. A few days later, he took the cat again, dropped it off 5 miles from the house. When he walked back in, the cat was there. So a few days later, he took the cat, dropped it 20 miles from the house, came back, cat was on the couch. Finally, he said, I've had enough. He drove the cat 100 miles from the house, dropped it off, and then on his way back, he called his girlfriend. He asked, is the cat there? And she says, yes. And he says, can you put him on? I need directions. I'm lost. And that is what we call the stupid cat joke. Anytime he told a dad joke, my sister and I would roll our eyes and say, well, anything is better than the stupid cat joke, but yet no matter how stupid it was, it always made us laugh. The stupid cat joke was just one of the many memories that started when we were kids and continued all the way through till now. That was the thing about my dad. He had a way of making sure all memories and jokes stayed with us forever. Every time we were together, there were always inside jokes and stories that were told. No matter how many times you heard it, it felt like the first time. I remember last year for Hanukkah, he got my sister and I matching t-shirts, and on the shirt was Grover from Sesame Street. And to put some background on this, when we were kids, he used to read to us all the time. And yes, we read the normal books, Rainbow Fish, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, although my sister and I always preferred If You Give a Moose a Muffin, and just all those other classic books. But we had one book that I talk about, and for some reason, no one ever seems to know it. I have no clue how we had it, but we did, and it's called The Monster at the End of the Book. And basically, spoiler alert, it's Grover, and every page is just him telling us to stop turning the pages because there's a monster at the end. And then you get to the end, and Grover realizes he's the monster, and that's the book. But we would have him read it to us over and over again, and then 20 years later, we open a gift, and it's a shirt with the book name and Grover on it. How he found it, I have no idea, but it was just an example of how he could take the smallest memories and make them last a lifetime. He had such a great memory for every little thing and would never let me live down any of my Gabbyisms, as they would call them. Normally, it involved me mispronouncing something, and every time it happened, my sister and him would look at each other and say, that's my sister. As a child, that would annoy me, so it became TMS, and then that annoyed me, so it became backwards SMT. And I remember saying, what does that stand for? And my sister goes, Some Mean Turtles, and he thought it was so funny, it just stuck. From then on, it was just Some Mean Turtles. So if you ever hear my sister saying that, she's most likely teasing me, but in a loving way, the same way my dad always did. As a child, I used to call dessert guzzert with a G, and no matter how old I got, every time after a meal, he would say, want some guzzert? Like I said, he would never let me live anything down. Every single inside joke, phrase, song, and memory could just never be forgotten with him because we'd always be laughing and talking about it like it was the first time. Growing up, I felt like my dad and I were very different people. I didn't know why. It could have been because my sister is literally his doppelganger and we're nothing alike. Or it could have been that he was a Giants fan and I'm a Cowboys fan, so we just can't get along. Either way, though, as I got older, I slowly realized how similar we actually are. Socially, I'm just like my dad. Being with friends, going to concerts, going to sporting events, traveling, literally just being out doing things. That's what he truly loved to do, and so do I. We would talk for hours and hours about so many different topics and go back and forth listening to each other's stories about friends and each of our own college experiences and places to travel and see. Whenever I shared stories that involved maybe a few drinks, he would never get mad or anything. He would just end up laughing and say, "That's my girl." He was someone who always lived life with a smile on his face and bringing laughter to every situation, taking every advantage to experience the most out of life, and I intend to continue to live my life like that in honor of him. My dad and I also had a very similar taste in movies and TV shows. He would give endless suggestions of movies and TV shows to watch, although nothing could ever beat our love for Friends. There would be times at dinner that between Alexa, Uncle John, Dad, and I, we would go for 5 minutes just having conversations of all Friends references. So if you didn't know Friends, you would be a little confused at family dinners. My dad also loved going to the movies, something I enjoy very much. We bonded over us both being AMC stub members and how great it was that we got free refills on our large popcorn. My dad had not been to the movies since before COVID, so on his birthday this year, my boyfriend and I took him to the movies. He was so excited. We arrived 45 minutes early, already having tickets and assigned seats, because he could just not miss the previews. I had not been able to celebrate my dad's birthday with him since I was very young, and I cherish the fact that I was able to be there this year and be a part of something that he enjoyed so much. For those of you that don't know, I have been living with my dad for the past 8 weeks. I decided last year I was going to do a clinical in Jersey, and I was very nervous because I had not lived with my dad for a long period of time since I was maybe 8 years old. As soon as I mentioned it to him, my fears slipped away, and he was so excited. He would talk about it constantly, how excited he was for me to live there with him. He cleaned out the whole guest room to make room for my stuff, and if you ask Nida, it was a lot of stuff. Her and my dad would joke that I showed up and was unpacking bags, and the bags just never ended. They were so welcoming, though, and made me feel comfortable right away, always texting me if I wasn't there on a Sunday, what I needed for groceries with a, "Hey kiddo, anything you need?" Living with him also gave me the opportunity to get closer with Nida. The night everything happened, she was with me and was saying how sorry she was and how great of a man he was, and she is right, but I can honestly say she made him even better. I never see my dad as happy as he was when he was with her. She had been there for him through a lot, and even with her mourning, constantly put me and my sister's feelings first to make this as easy as possible for us. We're so grateful for her, and she will always be family just as my dad would want it. These past 8 weeks living with my dad has been the greatest decision I've ever made. Every night he would wait up for me when I worked my late shifts. Maybe he didn't want me to know he was waiting up, but I could get home at 9 or 9:45, and he was still waiting there for me. And as soon as I walked in, he'd get so happy and say, "Hey, G, how was your day?" We'd talk for a bit about my day. He would say, "Love you, kiddo, good night," and go upstairs. It was something I always look forward to coming home to. There is never a right time for anything like this to happen, but I believe that living here with my dad was meant to be. In the past 8 weeks, my dad and I developed the strongest relationship we've ever had and something I can cherish forever. He never missed an opportunity to tell me he loved me or how proud he was of me. He was always saying how proud he was of me and my sister, and my uncle told me the other day that we were his greatest achievement. And I know that anyone can say that, but I know with my dad that it was true. The other day, we were trying to get into his phone, and Nida told us he has a password, but she didn't know what it was. We all thought it was most likely an important date, like most people use, so I tried his birthday. That didn't work, so I gave it to my sister. She put in 4898, and it unlocks my sister and I's birthday. And if that doesn't perfectly describe how much he adored my sister and I don't know what else does. No matter what I do in life, I know that he is looking down, proud of me, just as he told me every day he saw me. But I will miss the big bear hug that would always follow. I will continue to live life to the fullest with a smile on my face, just the way he always did and would want me to. I'll miss you, Daddy. Rest easy. You deserve it. Love, your one and only G Money.
Next, we'll invite Michael Weinstein to say a few words.
Morning, everybody. Gilberton Abraham Skolnick. That was almost the name of our dearly departed. Eric's love of sports was surely inspired by his father, who was a big fan of the Giants. Yelverton Abraham Tittle, or YA as he was better known, was a favorite of Ronald Skolnick, and almost led to Eric being named just that. The Giants were one of Eric's favorite teams. He and I also shared affection for the Yankees and Knicks, and we saw many games of all three teams in person. We celebrated 7 World Series titles, 4 Super Bowl wins during his fandom, but it was the elusive Knicks championship that tortured us both for decades. Our friendship dates back to the mid-'70s. Eric reminded me recently about the day we met. It was at Hebrew school, which was at Temple Ohab Shalom, which I believe merged with this congregation. There were classrooms in the basement of the synagogue. So I'm in the hallway looking at a bulletin board, and there was something about a student election. And Eric came up beside me and just said, "I'd vote for you." We were 12. We continued building our friendship through junior high and high school, and along the way we formed a triad with Elaine, who's here with us today. Countless good times for the three of us. We really were peas in a pod throughout those formative years. And before automated teller machines were a thing, we often relied on Eric when finances were tight. He always seemed to either have cash or have access to it, so he became our personal ATMs. We even had a name for it, the Bank of E, which on my Zelle account is still how I identify my friend to this day. Eric would often come to our end of town at Sayreville as we hung out with Elaine a lot, and also spent time in the pits, which were the infamous clay pits, which were across the street and behind a row of houses where Elaine and I grew up on Shy Drive. Before 2 condominium associations were built there, we would ride bikes, sometimes dirt bikes, did some crabbing, and lots of parties. Local neighborhood parties where we all chipped in for the keg. Playing my heavy metal cassettes on my boombox, it was the early to mid 80s, and standing outside in the dead of winter around a fire, freezing our butts off. Priceless. I remember one night when Eric and I ventured up towards Route 9, where there were strip malls, stores, restaurants, and as we headed back towards my house, the lights in the area all went black. For some reason, I decided that under these circumstances, it was a good idea for me to start running. And Eric followed, somewhat behind me. All of a sudden, I slammed my shin into a 1-foot-high concrete slab. I'm now rolling on the slab, grabbing my shin, rolling around in pain. Eric, always concerned for others' well-beings, runs towards me screaming, "Are you okay?" Followed by, "Ow!" He also ran into the concrete slab. And there we both were. Picture 2 guys. Well, wait, you can't picture it, it was pitch black, but imagine, if you will, 2 guys rolling around on a concrete slab, grabbing our shins, rolling around in pain. Luckily, nothing was broken, but bone bruises are not fun. We laughed about this for years, and to me, this was the definition of no good deed goes unpunished, and speaks to the genuine kindness and caring of the man who we mourn today. At this point, we were in our college years. He went to Rutgers and me to Montclair State, but we still hung out a lot, and his friends, like Greg Bonin, became my friends. And this is where our love of gambling began, at poker at Rutgers, which I'm sure Greg is going to touch on when he speaks. Eric also endeared himself to my college friends, like Mike Santoro, who is here with us today. Many times he would join me for my Saturday night heavy metal radio show at WMSC-FM in Montclair State. And oftentimes we would go to concerts or smaller clubs to see up-and-coming bands following those radio shows. This was during what we called the golden age of heavy metal. Bands like Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, they were just coming up, and they embraced college radio, and we embraced them. Eric would find a way to join us as we went to interviews or press conferences, like when new albums were released, and we got to meet and interview many of the bands before they made it big. Our mutual favorite experience was sitting down with King Diamond and Merciful Fate. We did our homework and surprised this legend on how much knowledge we had and how devoted we were. Then unfortunately, as luck would have it, the recorder we used malfunctioned, so we never got to hear this amazing interview. But we did take pictures, and just being in the room with someone we admired so much was a memory that we would always cherish. Although neither of us were outdoorsmen at the time, we were invited to join some of my Montclair State boys on a camping trip up in Equinook, Pennsylvania back in the day. We thought we were ready, bringing all the necessities, tent, sleeping bag, pillow. What we didn't give much thought about was food. Sure, we brought some, but when we whipped out those SpaghettiOs for the first night feast, this led to mocking that actually continues to this day, became a badge of dishonor that Eric and I proudly wore together. Of the many things that he and I agreed upon, one of the constants was our mutual disdain for the jocks in our high school. It was okay, they hated us back. I've only been in one real fight in my life. It happened about a year after high school. He and I were hanging out at Roy Rogers where I worked when 5 of those jocks we hadn't seen since graduation walked in. Each side made snide comments within earshot of the other, but their comments crossed over the line into anti-Semitism. I challenged the leader of the group to step outside, and all the others followed. He and I got into it, and as we were rolling around in the parking lot, I feel someone stomping on my back. One of the other jocks decided to join the fight. Eric sprung into action, pushing off the second jock, which caused the other 3 to get involved. It was 2 on 5. As Henry Hill said in Goodfellas, everybody takes a beating sometime. We both love that movie, by the way. But here was Eric again, helping a friend in need and paying a physical price for it. Aside from sports, our other major connection we had was with our musical tastes. We both liked it hard and heavy, starting early on with Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, Aerosmith, AC/DC, then progressively getting heavier, moving on to Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Ozzy. This continued all throughout high school, and then as we went to college, we got even heavier. Bands I mentioned earlier like Metallica, Anthrax, and Slayer, along with Motorhead and our mutual favorite, Merciful Fate. We saw them all at the top of their games. They were all hungry, as was our appetite to soak it all in. Countless concerts, including seeing Eric perform with his band. I mentioned Motorhead earlier. He sang Ace of Spades the night I saw him perform. Lemmy would be proud. One of the last times I saw him was at a concert, November of last year. Classic show, again, Merciful Fate. Back together and doing a set of early material that we both loved so much. So appropriate that the last show we saw was an unforgettable performance. As you head up the stairway to heaven, my friend, perhaps when you get there, you can jam with musicians we loved and lost. Imagine Eric fronting a band with Eddie Van Halen on guitar, Cliff Burton on bass, Neil Peart on drums. That would be heavenly. And make sure you say hello to your namesake, Yelverton Abraham Tittle, when you get there. Godspeed, dear friend. Rest in peace, brother.
Next, we invite Greg Bonin to share a few words.
I'm a little tall, yeah. There's no way I get through this without being a blubbering mess. So I'm going to picture Eric sitting there. Thank you. As if I don't have enough stuff in my pockets right now. And Eric's going to be giving me one of these. Or, even worse, his Snicker. So if I take a moment, that's what he's doing. So I'm trying to figure out how to start talking about Eric, about what he meant to me in our time together, the fun we had, and what he brought me in life. So I thought I'll start at the beginning. I met Eric in September 1983, our first year of college together at Rutgers. We lived across the hall, Davidson B. And then for the next 2 years, we lived in an apartment and a house together. He and I spent our entire college career together. Every great story I have, Eric's in it. And over the past 39 and a half years, we would tell those stories over and over again. Effortlessly finishing each other's sentences or filling in the details that one of us may have forgot. Laughing harder each time we told the story, and somehow even harder as the years went on. Stories I'll never be able to tell or share with anyone to the same effect again. Stories like the time the Domino Pizza Man threw a rock through our window. And then somehow I got hit by the Domino Pizza truck, who carried me across Rutgers campus, and Eric came to be my savior. Or how we used to get in the car at night, just take a ride to each other's homes. And inevitably, when we get to Eric's house, young Jonathan would be there in his pajamas and his beret. One night we were driving home from our roommate John's house, and it was late. I was driving, being very careful, no drinks involved. And Eric said to me, I think there's a cop behind us. And I said, how do you know? And Eric said, very matter-of-factly, his lights are on. We used to blow off class to watch Days of Our Lives. Right, Jerry? Imagine 5 22-year-old college men sitting around watching Days of Our Lives, arguing over what a bastard that guy is. And if we weren't blowing off class for Days of Our Lives, we were playing poker. We played poker. And we played poker. We had lost weekends of poker. We played just last month. We would play every quarter. Myself, Eric, Mike, Wes, and of course Bob. Please know that there's so many more stories, and they make up the heart of my relationship with Eric. They'd all be a lot funnier if Eric was here to tell them. He would laugh so hard I wasn't sure if we were laughing at the story anymore or how much we just enjoyed retelling. We were in college and we had fun. More fun than we should have had. Not only does every memory of my young adult life include Eric in some way, but he is directly responsible for so many of the people I love now as an adult. In college, Eric introduced me to his childhood friend, Mike Weinstein, who became a brother. Then he introduced me to Mike Santoro, another in our pack of brothers. After college, we both moved on with life, as it happens. We weren't in each other's lives as much. We kept in touch. But that all changed in July of 1989. One day I called E just to find out what he was up to. He said he and a few friends, Mike Weinstein, some chick named Elaine, and some other, our college roommate, Jerry, they had rented a condo in LBI. He said, we're going down this Saturday. I said, oh, great, have fun. He goes, why don't you come down for a day or two? Just a day or two. I got there on Sunday, and Eric introduced me to his childhood friend, Elaine. Eric, Mike, and Elaine, as Mike said, were good friends since grade school, inseparable. Elaine's mom would call them the Three Musketeers. Well, my short 2-day stay visit turned into a full week crash. I never paid for a room or board or nothing. And as you might expect, there are a lot of stories came from that week. The big one being that this year, Elaine and I will celebrate 32 years married. I'll get there. And then relatively recently, Eric introduced Elaine and I to Nida, another person that we cherish and love so much, and are glad to call a close friend and family member. Nida, we love you dearly. You were the angel Eric needed. You were the angel he needed at the time. Thank you for taking care of our friend. Eric is directly responsible for bringing all these people into my life and for giving me some of the happiest, most cherished memories. Over the years, he's been to every family event we ever had, weddings, births, anniversaries, holidays, parties, everything. He was part of the family. And we knew if Eric was coming over, we would have a good time. He was always positive, fun, and could remember everything from our history together. We were always amazed at his ability to recall the slightest detail, name, or movie line. Frustrating, really, that he could remember all that. Just recently, he and Nida were over to the house, and we were planning our future together, growing old together. And Eric and I decided we would somehow have to commemorate our 40 years of friendship this September. We planned to go back to Rutgers and have a few drinks at one of our old bars, or many of our old bars. I will go have that drink for us. We talked about future vacation plans as he and Nida tried to coax my wife onto a cruise, or make new arrangements to go to Vegas, or maybe back to Siesta Key, Florida, where we vacationed last summer. There's not many people in life you can say you didn't dislike anything about them. And there was nothing I did not dislike about Eric, except for his music. I hated his music. Almost as much as he hated my Springsteen. And for me, the world is a far lesser place now. He was more than a friend, more than a brother, more than a family member. He was and will remain a piece of me. I'm sure he has a piece of all of you. And while he may not be here, I will remember the stories, the laughs, and the people he brought into my life. He will never leave me again. And I will celebrate our friendship every day until we meet again. This is Skolnick, Kevin, Jonathan, Gabby, Alexa. Please know how much Eric is and will always be so profoundly loved by everybody he touched. And he will never be gone so long as we keep telling our stories.
And finally, we invite Jonathan to share a few words about his brother.
He's so much taller than me. Before I begin, when we were discussing the arrangements, Gabby, do you want to speak? Yes. Alexa wasn't sure. I said, obviously I'll speak. I always speak. And then I said, Tenida, Mike, and Greg. And I'm glad we did, because you guys made it very hard for me to now continue, but I wasn't going to read what I wrote. Last night I was taking a shower, TMI, but I was thinking about today, and I said, maybe I'll just throw it out and just speak just candidly. And I said, no, this is candid. I need to go with this because I don't think I'm going to be able to get through this. It's so hard to stand here in front of all of you and do this. It was 7 months ago that Eric and I were here eulogizing my father. Having never speaking about what we were going to say, our words were very similar, and oddly enough, we used the same font, size, and margin. Now here I am alone, about to speak about one of the most amazing human beings on the face of the earth. I want to cry, I want to scream, I want to hit something, but I can't. It's not how Eric would have wanted it. He would say, celebrate, little brother. Don't be sad. I will try and do my best, but this is the hardest thing I've ever done. My Ewek, as I would call him, when I was a little boy, was the smartest, kindest, most gentle human being I have ever known. My best friend, my biggest supporter, my big brother. I cannot say enough about how wonderful a man my brother was. Everyone that met him, as you can hear from Mike and Greg, they felt the same way. He was warm and friendly, incredibly sarcastic and funny. You wanted to be around him. Our friendship began shortly after I was born. He would help me, he would help my mom take care of me. He would always watch over me like a big brother should. He guided me throughout my life and always told me how proud he was of his baby brother. I remember as if it was yesterday when Eric left for Rutgers. It was the day before. I was in bed crying that my big brother was leaving me, and he came in the room and he picked me up and he gave me a big hug and said, "Don't worry, baby brother, I'll come visit." And he did, sort of. You know, maybe he came once a month or so, but at age 9, time meant nothing. Oh, look, you're here. But I do remember a couple times. He picked me up and drove me to campus. He took me to his dorm, Davidson, and I was completely horrified. The bathroom was disgusting. Actually, everything was disgusting. It left a mark on me for when I was applying to colleges. I said to my mom, I think I need a private room. I can't do this. Which I did get, by the way, because Hester makes things happen. But I digress. He would take me to Hardee's or Pizza or the best, Stuff Your Face. Oh my gosh, how much we loved that place. And on Friday, I went there in his honor. Thank you, Amy Cobb. And of course, Thomas Sweet for ice cream afterwards. Because actually, come to think about everything we did involved ice cream. He always supported me in every endeavor throughout my life. He was my financial planner and backup accountant. He would listen to me and offer advice or tell me what I should do instead. Most recently, I began renovating my kitchen. was having a very bad day. I was overwhelmed, and I was trying to plan where I should put my recessed lighting. I called him and I said, I can't do this. This is just too much. I can't figure out where it should all go. He said, no problem, baby brother. I'm coming over with Nida. We're going to figure it out. He got there and he said, it's perfect. You're doing a great job. I'm so glad he got to see the most recent progress because he was so excited to see the kitchen done. He said to me once, I know you and Mommy have a special relationship, and I think it's great. I'm not jealous. I love it. And I know she loves me and Kevin, but I just always know you'll take care of her. And I will. Speaking of, everyone knows I run the show, but he was the glue. Initially, as I was a little bit older, he would let me lead, and I said one day, why do I have to do everything in this family? And he said, because I trust you, and you're doing a great job, and who are we kidding? No one can get in your way. But he was the one that kept it together. My neurotic nature and his laissez-faire attitude were the ultimate yin and yang. He said to me, I just don't get it. Why do people insist on speaking to you when you are silent? If Jonathan isn't speaking, leave him alone. Let him cool down and reset. And it's true. I wish more people would understand me the way he did. Maybe this is a learning experience for all of you. I can stand here and I can count countless things. I mean, we could spend all day, but I'll list a couple. For example, each year after Rosh Hashanah, when we were here, get in the car, start driving home, and I'd look at him and say, should we? Of course! What was that? Go grab a slice of pizza. Because 17 years ago, Mom was like, dinner will be like 2 or 3 o'clock. And I said, I'm not waiting that long. We need pizza. And we did. We got a piece of pizza. And we continued to do that. And speaking of pizza, when we got pizza, he would say, sticks? Of course. We would always try to find the best mozzarella sticks. And of course, we had to discuss the consistency and how they were fried and how delicious they were. And to this day, it was the best sticks we ever had were in Staten Island. I'm pointing to Tori and Eddie. Our last meal together, we actually had sticks, so how apropos. Directions in driving were our thing as well. Actually, it's a Skolnick thing. It holds true with Daddy, Kevin, Eric, and I. When we would go to a new place, we would recount how we got there. He would say to me, did you take the Garden State Parkway to Route 46? Did you go this way? Did you go that way? Of course. He would say to me, did you see they opened up a new road? I'm like, yeah. And then Kevin and Eric would try to beat each other who got on that road first. And when we would talk about how we got there, actually we did that today in the coach getting here. And I'm like, why are we going this way? What is happening? What is happening? And it infuriated Nida, and I loved it. I wanted to do everything my big brother did. He grew long hair. I tried to, but I ended up with Drew Fro. And Greg, the reason why I wore a beret, and Kathy, the reason why I wore a beret is because my hair was here and I needed to keep it down. He loved music. I mean, he loved music. So do I, albeit different tastes. Me, Whitney Houston. He, Led Zeppelin. Me, Madonna. He, Black Sabbath. Me, Wilson Phillips. Which, by the way, was my first CD I ever bought. And I didn't have a CD player, so I would have to go into his room to listen to it. But he never made me feel like I was silly or stupid or felt ashamed of my music choices. He was a Yankee fan, so I became a Yankee fan. We went to countless games together, back when you could afford to go as many games as possible. We'd hop on the train and go to a game randomly. If we were early, we'd go to Yankee Tavern and grab a few drinks and talk, because we could talk about anything. I could recount the stories at Yankee Stadium, but I'm not. I mean, there's so many, as I've said. But I'll give you one, and he recounted it because I don't remember the story. We went to a playoff game, and we got there early, so picture it. We're in Yankee Tavern. We're feeling good. He had some beer. I have some vodka. You know where this is going. So, it's time to leave. We've got to head to the stadium. So we start walking, and I look at him, and I say, Eric, I can't feel my legs. He said, it's all right. Let's keep going. Made it inside, and we made the stairway to heaven up to row X in the old stadium. If anyone remembers, it was the last row, sitting right in front of the staircase, and I could have toppled. Got ourselves settled, and I said, let's get peanuts. So we bought peanuts, and he, to this day, still yells at me, peanuts? Because I felt like I needed to share. So I yelled, peanuts, peanuts, peanuts! I wanted to share. After I settled down around the 6th inning, I decided to go get ice cream. If anybody remembers the old stadium, you had to go all the way to left field, I think, to get Carvel, nowhere else. So off I went on my adventure, and by the top of the 8th inning, I returned. He goes, oh my gosh, where were you? I said, doesn't matter, I got the ice cream. Beyond baseball, it was football. Eric was a Rutgers football season ticket holder for 40 years. I knew nothing about football. Quite frankly, it confused me. But each year, Eric and I would he would take me to at least one game, and after we tailgated for hours, assuming I was coherent, he would teach me the game. I began understanding it and decided I would follow football too. So since Eric was a Giants fan, guess what? So was I. He loved his children so very much. He was so proud of Alexa and Gabby. He was proud of everything they did. He spoke of them all the time and gave me updates on their lives. He knew how much I loved them and always tried to keep me in the loop and include me in their accomplishments. He was so proud of who they became. And as I look at Alexa and Gabby, I see Eric. I see the facial expressions. I hear the intelligence, and I feel the sarcasm. He wasn't a saint. He had his faults, but Eric was humble and would learn from his shortcomings. When he met Nida, I knew his life was going to change, and it did. It was shortly after he was diagnosed with cancer. She stood up and fought with him, and that was 6 years ago. How blessed I feel to have him with me these 6 years. And Nida, I adore you since I met you, and I'm very grateful. When we were on the phone the other day, you said something to me, and I never gave it much thought. I said to you, you saved my brother. You were an angel sent from somewhere to stand by his side and fight. And you replied to me, he was my angel. No man has ever treated me the way Eric treated me. And I get it. It wasn't until recently that I just realized how special Eric was. I mean, I always knew, but I just thought he was special to me. He's my big brother. I mean, I would hear things spoken about Eric, and I realized what I've known my whole life, the world knows too. Like I said, he was no saint, but he was a good person. Several days before we lost him, he had taken me for a procedure, and he had to wait for me to drive me home after anesthesia. And when I was awake and I was groggy, I could hear someone on the phone, and they were talking to him and said, you can pick Jonathan up in 10 minutes. And she hung up the phone and she said to someone, oh my God, what a nice guy. Jonathan is lucky to have such a wonderful brother. A total stranger who spoke to Eric for 20 minutes, knew how special he was. As you all can see, my mother isn't with us right now. She's in the hospital. I talked to her, and on her behalf, I just want to mention a couple things. She said to me, yes, he was a wonderful son, my firstborn, and I was so proud of him. But there were moments, like the time he came home from college, opened up the door. For some reason, I think it was like a Shabbat dinner we were eating, and we know the house, the bi-level. He came in through the door holding his laundry, and my mom goes, "Hi, honey." Orange hair. What did you do to your hair? She made him go to the hairdresser immediately to have it corrected. The idea is he was trying to go blonde, but it went orange. When he got his license, he decided he'd take the car to drive to school. got in the car, began backing the car out of the garage, except he forgot to open up the garage. So I hear a bang. I look outside my window, and I see half of the Buick hanging out of the car. He gets out of the car, and he's looking at the damage, and my mom comes out and says, "You killed my garage!" Calmly, he pulled the car back in, put up his hand, and said, "Don't worry, I'll walk." Eric enjoyed all of the Jewish holidays so much, especially the foods, and Mama is an amazing cook. Canadians can't just have 3. Gefilte fish and crane, delicious, more please. And his absolute favorite, which I find absolutely disgusting, by the way, is Russell borscht. And my mom loved to make that, and he and my father would have it. So one Passover, he poured some borscht for Eric. My mom poured borscht for Eric. And he came inside and sat down and put some matzah farfel in it and said, I need more, and proceeded to dump the entire box of matzah farfel in it. And what happened? A giant bowl of pink fluff. And my mom, with her witty sense of humor, says, "So, you want some borscht with your farfel?" Kevin, the other day, reminded me of when we had our Atari 2600 and our countless games, and one of these games stopped working. So Mom, Eric, and Kevin drove to Crazy Eddie to exchange the cartridge. They get to the parking lot. My mom turns around and says, "Hey, Eric, where's the game?" He looked at Kevin and said, "Oh, I didn't know they needed it. I thought they would just give us a new one." From then on, Kevin referred to him as Crazy Eddie Man. He did many silly things, but do not do anything silly in front of him, because you'll regret it. Kevin has been the victim of what Eric would call Kevinisms. And Gabby mentioned she as well. I snow. I was sitting with my mom in the hospital yesterday, and we were both trying to make sense of all this. You just can't. I guess it's God's plan. Who are we to argue? Through tears, we said to each other, if Eric taught us anything, it was to live your life. It's a lesson for all of us. I will miss many things about Eric. I will miss his laugh. I will miss his friendship. I will miss his voice. Hey, little brother. Hey, Jay. Love you, little brother. As I mentioned, Eric loved music. He went to countless concerts, so it's fitting that I finish up with some words from Eric's favorite band, Led Zeppelin. As Robert Plant and Jimmy Page once said, "The leaves are falling all around. It's time. I was on my way. Thanks to you, I'm much obliged for such a pleasant stay. But now it's time for me to go. The autumn moon lights my way. For now I smell the rain, and with it pain, and it's headed my way. Sometimes I grow so tired, but I know I've got one thing I gotta do, ramble on. I hope I did you proud, big brother. This was the hardest week of my life, and I tried my best. My world is shattered. My childhood is gone. My mother lost a child. My beautiful nieces lost their father. My dear Nida lost her partner. And my brother Kevin and I lost our big brother. This is truly an insurmountable loss. The world has lost a great man. Say hello to Dad. Say hello to Daddy for me. I love you."
So many great memories and stories we just heard. I just want to fill in a few of the other details that go into making a part of who Eric was. Eric was born February 18th, 1965. His father, Ron, took his mother, Hester, to the hospital and went to park the car. When he got back, Eric had already been born. That's a true story, right, Jonathan? A true testament to how long it takes to park in Brooklyn. Hester recalls Eric was a very easy baby and he didn't make much fuss. He was later joined by his brothers Jonathan and Kevin, and they had their many adventures as children, as we heard. Eric was always a strong student. He even skipped a grade in Hebrew school. He's just trying to keep up. I heard he was very talented in all of his academics. Graduated high school as an honors student. And he went to Rutgers originally for engineering. I heard, though, he started to fail in one of his physics classes. So on the advice of his father, he went into accounting. I had heard, again, just a few months ago, it seems, when we were discussing all the memories that Eric had of his father, Ron, he mentioned having been taken to a number of meetings with clients by his father, and perhaps he was a little predisposed to becoming an accountant. And he apparently passed the CPA with only 2 tries, which I guess is pretty good. It's a difficult exam. And he went right to work. After a few years, a few different positions, he moved into his position at Blond and Tongue. Is that correct? Blonder. I got the blonde part. I missed the R. Okay. It's that Brooklyn coming out. Okay. Blonder and Tongue. He was there since about 2000, right? He was the CFO and a VP. And I have to, I wasn't going to mention this, but since we heard about the Porsche, I have to tell you that we were sitting, we were talking about these stories, and Jonathan was telling me Blonder and Tongue. And he said, actually, tongue was one of Eric's favorite foods for a while. And then he found out where it came from. And he said, I'm okay. Along the way, Eric met Kathy at work, 1989. And they got married on Halloween in 1992. And Alexa and Gabby told me it wasn't because it was Halloween, it just happened to be Halloween. And in 1998, I was thinking that in the most accountant and perhaps the most Jewish way possible, Eric and Kathy had 2 for the price of 1 when the twins came. Very telling, I think, of Eric's joyful and very helpful attitude, that they're both going into health-related fields really to help people. And just like Eric, they're going to make the world a better place. Of course, as time went on, Eric and Kathy decided to go their separate ways. But after some time, Eric met his Nida, a real rock for him, a life partner, who stayed with him throughout his battle with cancer, which really started just a few months after they met. What more can we say after so many stories and memories? But that Eric will be remembered as a humble, loving, charismatic man. You might have asked, could you be any more funny? A very sarcastic sense of humor that he had. And loved music and sports, especially the Giants and the Yankees, as we heard, and most especially Rutgers football, but most of all his family. May the memory of Eliezer Shmuel ben Reuben Ber v'Chana Esther always be for a blessing. If you would, please rise for the memorial prayer. הרחמים שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. אס נשמס אליעזר שמואל בן ראובן וחנה אסתר שהלך לעולמו, בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים הסתירהו בצאת כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים אס נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Eric Samuel Skolnick, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We'll ask the pallbearers to come forward.